Episodes 8 and 9 are probably my two favorite episodes of season 1, and a big part of that is because of the first scene in each of them. We filmed this first scene in episode 8 and the first scene in episode 9. We filmed them both on the same day. I mean, for obvious reasons, they were both in the same location and they had all the same people. I think we filmed this one and then we had lunch and then filmed the second one. And I learned a valuable lesson when we filmed this one as a director. We originally did not do a lot of rehearsal for this, and we ended up just kind of taking lots and lots of takes for the master in particular. And there were just so many, I ended up just not even watching them afterwards. I kind of skipped a bunch of them in the dailies, and I was like, well, that was a waste. And so after that, for a lot of these other scenes that had a lot of kind of moving parts and a lot of, characters interacting with each other, in this case, they're all sitting down, but there's a lot of, there's the pacing of it really matters. And so for those kinds of scenes in particular, I've just made it a point to rehearse it more beforehand, and so that was a good thing to learn, that if we're going to have to practice it a bunch anyway, we might as well do that off camera, unless there's some sort of initial reaction that you want to get from someone that you might want to there's something that you want to get that's really raw. Maybe that would be a good idea to do that without rehearsing first, but there isn't really anything like that in this show, at least not in the first season.
I got this. Hey, Mom! Can I have a party tonight?
You want to have a party?
Yeah.
This part where Shay explains to Acantha what football is, this was their idea. They just kind of had the idea to add that little part in. Those two actresses, so Rachel and Mallory, they're actually friends in real life, and they were, I think that was why they ended up coming and auditioning around the same time. They've worked together before, and so it was kind of cool having them being able to play characters that are friends. I think it added a lot of authenticity there.
When I say come, I mean at 10. So you'll be there? Great.
Now, I haven't talked much about Ava yet. She is so fantastic. Ava, who plays Bella. We had several people that auditioned for this part, and there were a lot of really good options. There was this other girl that I was also considering, but she was really good, but she was a little too sweet for this role, and Ava she was so able to capture this kind of the fun range of this sort of mischievous character, and I was just so impressed also by her professionalism and her talent, I've had a really good time having her on the project. Now, this right here, I think this is my absolute favorite scene of the show, and it's largely because of Brennan's idea to do this all largely in one take. It just adds so much energy. I think it was such a good idea. And this was one that we rehearsed many, many times before we filmed it. Not just to get the timing of all the actions right, but also to get the timing of the camera right. So this was one of those ones that had a lot of moving pieces. There were only so many versions of that little model we had that could snap the way that Ben just snaps it there in frustration. So when we were rehearsing, we just kind of had him mimic that action. But fortunately, we ended up not needing to actually film it that many times because we had it sewed down. By the time we started rolling that, the number that we had was perfect.
How nice of you to join us. Dude, I know, the band.
Yeah, this room, though, was really crowded because in addition to all these people, we had the camera and the light, and it got really hot in there because we had the AC off for sound purposes. I think I had to be in a different room watching this scene, like on this little device that we had. So I was like calling action through the walls, just screaming it, action. That little device was pretty clunky, though. It didn't really work all that well. Sometimes when we were filming scenes like that where, I had to be in another room, I just have to, and I couldn't be at Brennan's shoulder. I have to come in and he'd have to replay it on the camera, and I just have to watch it in between takes. So not perfect, but, it worked. we recorded a bunch of them ad-libbing some audio at some point, which is them just talking randomly, and we ended up using a snippet there in this scene in the background. There was some really hilarious stuff that they came up with, and I wish we could have used more of them. I think my favorite was this part where Glenn, as Ben, pointed to the fish on Rob's head and went, "Is this a Dagon?" So ridiculous.
I've done that before. That's just by yourself.
All right. Remember to do a lot of bellowing, braying, and writhing.
Like this?
No. Like this.
This take that's coming up soon when they do the chanting, we had a lot of different takes obviously, but that one in particular was just so awkward and so off that I really died laughing when I watched it later during dailies, and I was like, yeah, that's the take we have to use. It's so dorky.
Let's start the chant, okay?
Time for downward fish, little disciple.
This episode is one of those situations of, I hope my parents and grandparents never watch this. I kind of hope none of them have gotten far enough into the season to see episode 8. I haven't asked them, so I'm just gonna hope they didn't. This part with their commentary in the dark, it used to be a lot more explicit. So not in terms of the images, but in terms of the words that they were saying, Heath and I were writing, like it was late at night and the two of us were really delirious and silly. And we put some stuff that was pretty, it was a little bit more explicit in the humor, a little bit more adult. And then next day, clarity kind of came. I think it was Brennan. He read the script and he was like, "Oh, this is all great, but guys, I don't know about this scene in particular. I think you've taken it too far." And I read it and I was like, yeah, you're right. So now, of course, a bunch of you are going to be wondering what the jokes are that we took out, but I'll just leave it at that.
Now, but worth it.